Hello and welcome to another Verde Solutions webinar. In this webinar, we'll be discussing lighting and energy efficiency lighting. It's meant to be a Lighting 101. My name is Tim McAvoy, Director at Verde Solutions. Today we're going to talk about incandescent, halogen, and metal halide lights, fluorescent lighting, and then the new LED lighting. We'll also discuss conducting your initial walkthrough at the end. Some terms we'll be using today, some lighting basics, are lumen, which is a measure of total light output from a bulb or a source. Watts, which is the power used, which is different than energy, which is a watt hour or a kilowatt hour. Efficiency, which is the amount of lumen output from a fixture, and so that does not include heat loss and buzzing losses. Efficacy is how much lumens per watt a bulb produces, and a foot candle is the amount of light that falls on a surface per unit area. Some typical light levels that the Illuminating Engineering Society of North America uses. Parking lot, you might see about 2 foot candles. Hallways, 10. Offices, manufacturing, 30 to 50. Assembly, anything that needs small parts, is 50 to 100 foot candles. Retail display is meant to be 300 foot candles, and then ER healthcare is 1,000. Efficiency reduces carbon emissions, so this is tied back to power plants. So every kilowatt saved, you can equate that back to a certain pound of CO2 or NOx emissions or sulfur dioxide emissions. Color rendering index, or CRI, is how well light represents color. The easiest way to describe it is the quality of the colors you see under the light. So the higher the better there. So 90 plus is excellent, and you'll see that in incandescent lights, halogen lights, and some LEDs. 80 to 90 is still very good. 70 to 80 is good, and you get the idea. Color temperature is the appearance of the light. So cool light is a higher Kelvin, and that would be sort of your bluish, whitish lights. You typically see those in manufacturing and warehouses or exterior lighting. Warm lights is on the lower Kelvin scale, like 3,000 down to 2,000, and that would be more of sort of your mood lighting that you might see in a restaurant or a bar. It's yellow, and so you can see here that candle lights down on the bottom, halogens in the middle, and then some LEDs higher on the scale. This shows you sort of dramatic difference between the same facility, one with high pressure sodiums on the left here, which sodium is yellow, and we retrofitted that with a T5 high output white, a nice white light. These are the labels that you'll see on pretty much any light bulb that you might see at your Home Depot type stores. Kind of puts everything that we just talked about together. The light output lumens, 840 watts used would be 9, so that would be an LED. The efficacy would be 93. Here's your CRI, and then it shows you sort of your warm to daylight, the Kelvin. So this one is 3100 Kelvin. So in incandescent, how it works, the electric current passes through a filament and it incandesces or glows. The pros are their very low initial cost, variety of shapes and sizes, very decorative. They dim really well. They have a really good CRI. The con is that 90% is wasted as heat, and they have incredibly short lamp lives. A halogen is very similar to an incandescent. It's just a little bit more efficient. You'll see these, a lot of the track lights that you'll see are halogens. They have slightly longer life, but have similar pros and cons to the incandescents. Fluorescent, um, essentially how it works is the electric excites the mercury vapor that's inside of the tube and it turns it into visible light. The pros are they're much more efficient, they last longer. Again, many shapes and sizes. You have the CFLs, which are for a screw-in incandescent replacement, but then you also have the tubes that are, in your troffers and your strips everywhere. Some of the cons is that they do contain mercury, and then LEDs have surpassed them in terms of efficiency. So here's some of the tube sizing that you'll see when you look up, and you might see the 2x4 troffers, the 2 feet by 4 feet, which we'll get into a little bit later. And you might hear these words thrown around: T5, T8, T12. Essentially, it's the width of the bulb, and so a T12 is essentially 12 divided by 8, so it's 1.5 inches. T8 in the middle is 8/8, so it's 1 inch wide, and then T5 gets even smaller. And so each step down, you get more and more efficient. So T12s are incredibly inefficient. T8s are the next best, and we do a lot of retrofits where the people switch from T12 to T8. Then T5, excuse me, is a higher output that you'll see in a lot of high bay applications, like the slide that we just showed. Behind all of this is a ballast that you don't see, but factors in very heavily to the efficiency of the light. And so a lot of the T12s, almost all of them, contain magnetic ballasts behind it. And it basically takes the line voltage and converts it into power that the tube needs. It's a mini transformer, I guess is one way of thinking of it. These magnetic ballasts are full of tar and lead and incredibly inefficient, very hot, and are being phased out. And so what you do when you retrofit a T12 to a T8 is you replace the ballast behind it also to an electronic ballast, which is much more efficient, quieter, lighter. They last longer. And so, just by simply replacing the ballast, even if you don't notice a lot of wattage reduction in the tubes, just by replacing the ballast, you can get some significant reduction. And that's something that, you don't typically see. It's typically behind the troffer and you don't even see it. Some ballast factors, you can tinker around with the light output. So you have normal, high, and low. So normal would be sort of your 0.87 ballast factor. High we always use for high and low for high bay applications where we want to maximize the output of the tube. And then low is maybe in a hallway where we want to use the same tubes that we're using all over, but don't need quite as much light and can save more money being more efficient that way. So just wanted to show you kind of behind the scenes that the by tinkering with the ballast you can really affect lighting and the amount of energy that it's using. Metal halide is well, I guess in general it's more of a HID, which is a high intense discharge. Metal halide is one type of HID, along with high pressure sodium, mercury vapor, sort of the more popular lights that you'll hear. So these are your sort of bell-shaped fixtures that you'll see inside a lot of gymnasiums, and then typically exterior lights too. So here's a shot of a parking lot. And so similar to incandescent or actually a fluorescent, the electric excites the vapor and produces a visible light. Similar pros, it does have a long life, relatively efficient. The cons requires warm-up time. If you've ever been in a gym and flipped on the lights, it takes about 2 minutes before you can even see anything. They're often very bad, very poor color rendering. They do contain mercury, and then you get that buzzing noise quite a bit with the ballast behind the scenes. And then now sort of the next gen is LED, so light emitting diodes. They're semiconductors that produce light, so different than a light bulb. The pros are they're incredibly efficient, they last very long, depending on, as long as you get a high quality, reputable LED firm. Unfortunately, there's a lot of cheap knockoffs out there. The con is that they're still expensive. Prices have dropped dramatically in the last, 2 years especially, but they're still, the most expensive light out there. You do get some performance variation, so you got to be careful. That's the nice thing about going through Verde Solutions is we've vetted, all of the companies and tested all the companies to make sure they're reputable brands and that they're DLC qualified, Energy Star, things of that nature. So if you do a project through us, you'll only be getting, high quality LED lights, but still at factory direct pricing. So some of the typical lives of some of the bulbs that we just talked about, some of the different lighting that we talked about, you get, the idea incandescent. So, to give you a frame of reference, there's 8,760 hours in a year. So an incandescent, 7,500 to 2,000 hours. A halogen, 2,000 to 4,000. A CFL, 8,000 to 12,000. So you can get, one that stays on 24/7. It can last you, over a year. Metal halide could last you as much as 3 years. As we'll talk about, there's some significant lumen depreciation that occurs. Fluorescents, the high efficiency ones can go all the way up to 80,000 hours, which is incredible. They're doing some great things. And then LEDs, I've seen some claim 200,000 hours as well. So they just keep getting better and better. And just again to give you a frame of reference, if you put these in a school that maybe runs 4,000 hours a year, and you have something that will last you 80,000 hours, that's 20 years. That would be the useful life. So something that we always tell our customer about LED. LEDs, okay, so how are LEDs different? LEDs are semiconductors, they're not light bulbs. So they can make these look like light bulbs, but at the end of the day, they're light emitting diodes, so they're little circular diodes. They're inherently directional because of that. So instead of a light bulb, producing power in every direction, LEDs go out in a certain direction. LEDs don't burn out, they just get dimmer over time. And so this is a really good slide. It talks about the lumen depreciation that I was just referencing. So on the left here is the y-axis is your lumen output percentage, and then on the x-axis here is the operating time. And so you can see this, this dark blue line is an LED, and so you get an idea of how long it lasts versus, this one is a fluorescent, so very little lumen depreciation, and then it, malfunctions. An incandescent, there's significant lumen depreciation, and then it goes out. I'm sorry, this is the metal halide. I'm sorry, this one is the metal halide. Significant lumen depreciation, and then it goes out. And so even if somebody put in, metal halides, if it's a year old, it's probably getting about, 70% of what it had when they installed it. So there's room for improvement there. Also, you can, they are very tolerant of cold temperatures, which fluorescent actually is not. You'll get less light output for fluorescent bulbs in cold temperatures. So in parking garages and things like that, in the wintertime, it gets darker just naturally. Whereas LEDs are not only tolerant of cold temperatures, but they love cold temperatures. Heat is their biggest sort of enemy. They also are typically covered in plastic as opposed to as opposed to fluorescent tubes, and so there's nothing to break, no glass break. You don't need the cages that you'll see over fluorescent and halogen metal halide bulbs and tubes. They're mercury free, they're instant on, and so in a lot of parking garages that we're doing occupancy sensors, and so we can do that because as soon as somebody opens a door, those lights kick on and they're 100% of the output, as opposed to a fluorescent. If you've ever had a CFL in your house and you turn it on when it's cold, it takes a while to dim up. So we would not be able to do occupancy sensors really well with a fluorescent. And then LEDs are really compact in size. You can get a lot of output for your square footage. I wanted to run through just sort of some common lighting measures that you might see and just kind of walk through some of the existing versus replacements that you might see. So here's a picture of a four lamp troffer, and you can see, it's your typical 2 foot, wide by 4 foot troffer. You also see 2 by 2 troffers. They'll be the squares. A lot of those, there'll be a U-shaped bulb, fluorescent bulb, as opposed to here, there's 4 foot, 4 foot tubes. You also see a lot of 1 by 4s as well. So those are the kind of the common ones: 1 by 4, 2 by 2, and then 2 by 4. So this one is a 4 lamp T12 2 by 4. So that means behind here is a T12, and then there's four T12 bulbs, and then behind that is a magnetic ballast. And so it's using, for a 34 watt bulb, it's using 162 watts. And so, if you multiply 34 by 4, that doesn't equal 162. We're adding in a ballast loss for having a magnetic ballast. And so some typical retrofits that we would do for this situation would be um, a 2 lamp T8 with a reflector. And so we'd be switching from 4 lamps, 4 tubes to 2 tubes, and then we put a reflector behind it, so all that light that's going up and just sort of being wasted is reflected down. And so you can have the same output with only 2 lamps as you do with 4. And so that's 50 watts compared to the 162 watts. And here's just some incentives from the local ComEd small business program. So it would be $97 installed, $63 incentive, and you have a 5-month return on your investment. Everything is warranted for 3 to 5 years on that, so you get an idea of the savings that could be achieved there. You could also do an LED retrofit kit in this 2 by 4. Has the same watts used, 50. It's about $100 more to install, 197. You do get a higher rebate, and it has 17-month ROI. These are also warranted for 7 years, so there is that the more upfront cost, but you'll see that play out. And the savings play out as time goes on. Here's a 2 lamp T12 2 by 4, and so it's using 81 watts as opposed to 162 watts, and it has a similar retrofit, a 1 lamp T8 with a reflector, which would be 26 watts, $88 installed, 13-month ROI, or we would do a 32 watt LED retrofit kit and have a 3.5-year ROI. And so you can see the dramatic difference in payback between a 4 lamp, where it's a 5-month ROI for a T8 replacement and a 17-month ROI for an LED replacement, and a 2 lamp, which would have 13 months and 3.5 years. So it's pretty much double or more than double the payback. And so it's important when you're going through your walkthroughs to really look around and see, are they 2 lamps? Are they 3 lamps? Are they 4 lamps? Because that's going to make the difference between whether it's going to be a great project like a 4 lamp or just a pretty good project, which would be, a 2 lamp. Here's a 4 lamp T8 2 by 4. This is actually a picture of a wrap. So if it was a troffer, it would be sort of inside the ceiling and it would be flush with the ceiling. And you'd probably see some grid, some other gridded ceiling. Here, these are wrap fixtures, so they're surface mounted and they go below. Just some of the terminology. This is an actual wrap fixture. And so the 4 lamp T8 2 by 4, which is the same as a 4 lamp in here, instead of using 162 watts, it's using 92 watts. And so the only thing we can really do here is an LED retrofit kit, which would be 50 watts. So it's your same $197 installed. You get less of an incentive, and your ROI is 4.6-year ROI. So now you see why it's really important to figure out whether they have T12s, where it's a great project, or T8s, where there's only one thing that we can do, and it's going to be, 4 years, 5 years payback, which not a lot of people are willing to do. So really important on the front end to figure out whether these are T12s or T8s. Here's your strip fixture that you'll see in a lot of industrial facilities. You'll see them in a lot of retail, older retail type stores as well. So these come in 8-foot fixtures a lot of times. And so this is an example of a two lamp, 8-foot T12 strip. And so this uses 148 watts. In this example, we're using 75 watt bulbs. It's important to get a picture, and we'll talk about this, of the stamp, because then we'll know exactly what the wattage of the bulbs are. because these can be 60 watts, 75 watts, or even 110 watts, and so there's a difference in payback there, obviously. So what you do to replace this is you'd use, excuse me, 4 lamp, 4-foot T8 bulbs, which use 96 watts, be about $107 installed, $64 incentive, and you get a 13-month ROI. Or you could put some LED tubes in. So instead of T8 fluorescent tubes, you could put in T8 LED tubes. You'd use 60 watts, it'd be more installed. In our territory, ComEd, those are not incentivized, so you see the zero incentive and it'd have a 3-year ROI. Some of you that are in Ohio, Pennsylvania, other states, that there actually might be an incentive for this, which would obviously just decrease the ROI. Here is the 400 watt metal halide replacement. So here's the before. You can see the bell shape fixtures up at the top here. Notice kind of some of the darker spots as you get in between these fixtures versus the what we did here was a 6-lamp 4-foot T8 high bay. So we use 6 4-foot lamps, T8 lamps. So it makes a sort of a square instead of the bell shape. And you can see there's just no dark spots in between these fixtures. The spread is just incredible. So you're making it not only more efficient but also safer. And so you're going from 455. So again, these are 400 watt metal halides. 55 watts is just the ballast that you don't even see. You could probably hear it because they're buzzing, but you don't see it. So that is replaced with the 6-lamp 4-foot T8 high bay. So we're probably using a high factor ballast there. It's 208 watts. So we're reducing it over 50%. It's $400 installed. You get a $248 incentive and a 7-month ROI. Another thing that we'll do in a lot of situations is put occupancy sensors so that way if parts of your warehouse or manufacturing area aren't being used, that those lights turn off automatically and can increase your savings even more. The other option is a high bay LED, 140 watts, so even less watts. A little bit more installed, 480, $270 incentive. It has a 14-month ROI. Yeah, again, so the notes both are with occupancy sensors. So anytime we're going in there and doing something, we'd like to add controls if we can. It just decreases the savings or increases the savings even more. Here's the same bulb, a 400 watt metal halide, but this is an exterior application. So here's your here's your typical parking lot light that you'll see. And then here's basically the same parking lot light, but it's just mounted onto a wall, bracketed onto a wall here. So you'll see both of those very popular. So again, 455 watts. And so really here, the only option is LED. We don't really want to put a CFL in there. And so this is meant to sort of show, the importance of operating hours and collecting that up front. So the LED pole, if it's dusk to dawn, meaning 5, 6 o'clock whenever it gets dark to 5, 6 o'clock in the morning whenever it gets bright again, it's on all night. We're going to use 150 watts, $828 installed, $244 incentive, and you have a 3-year ROI. Again, these are warranted 5, 7, 10 years. So even though it has a longer payback, you're going to make his place brighter, safer, and these are going to last you a long, long time, and you won't have to call somebody because a light burned out. The LED pole lights. Okay, so the same light with a 4-hour timer. So this means maybe he closes at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and so the light kicks on at whenever it gets dark, 5, 6, 7 o'clock. And it stays on until 10 or 11 o'clock, so it's on only 4 hours a night. So you get the exact same install cost. That's meant to say 150 watts. It's meant to be the exact same bulb. But you go from a 3-year ROI to a 10-year ROI. So it's really important to get the operating hours when you go to a facility. Here's the Verde website consultant page. If you haven't been here, this has the PIF downloads and some training videos such as this. And then on the PIF page, it has the requirements, the PIF requirements, the latest PIF, the audit worksheet, and the lighting guide. The lighting guide was shown earlier. It's just meant to be a reference for different types of bulbs. So the PIF requirements, we ask you to take at least one photo of every different kind of fixture or light, and we'll go through what makes a good picture in a couple slides here. Fill in the audit worksheet. We don't need exact numbers. We don't need you guys to do, our job for us. What we want to get an idea is, are we talking about 3 of these types of lights? Are we talking about, 20, or are we talking about 200? And so if you're off, just take a glance up and just do some quick, multiplication, 4 rows of 6, 24, and if you're off a few, you're off a few. But we just want to get an idea of what we're kind of talking about, because there's 200 of you agents out there, and we need to dedicate resources to the appropriate projects. And then we need you to complete the PIF and obtain an electric bill, and then send that to Zoe Emmons at the contact information below. Okay, so here's the prospect information form, or the PIF. So at the top will be your agent communication information. Next below will be the customer information. Here's your hours of operation, indoor, outdoor. So very important. Project description. This is also very important. Is the customer looking to save as much money as possible? Are they looking to upgrade their lighting as cheaply as possible? Do they want LEDs? Do they want fluorescent? Tell us about the project. This is very important to understand. How to approach the customer, and whether it's a good, whether it's even a good fit. Whether not all of them are going to be great leads and great projects. So this will help qualify. And then some dates and times when the customer can speak to a Verde consultant or have us come out and visit them. Here's your audit worksheet. So again, type of bulb, the description of the bulb if it's unknown, picture is the best, wattage of the bulb, and then the number of bulbs per fixture, number of fixtures, and some idea of location. So here's some ideas of how to take pictures. So take at least one of every different type of fixture, get close up. So you can see the top right here. This is a wall sconce. We get plenty of pictures of people just taking a picture of the wall sconce, but that doesn't do anything for me. I need to know what's underneath there. So here it's a fluorescent. So we know right away there's probably, we can replace it with an LED. It'll save 50% of the energy, but, it might be 3 years, 4 years. And so it might not be a slam dunk, as opposed to if this was a incandescent, which would make it a no-brainer to do something there. Try to find the stamp. And so here's a picture of a stamp, so we can see, a lot of times this will have a T12 or T8, but we can see it's a 34 watt, cool white Sylvania fixture. So this would be a T12 because it's 34 watts. Again, a lot of them will say T12 or T8 on it. If you can't find a stamp, or are looking at a light that you don't know of, or really just every time I always ask to see a utility closet. And so here's a picture of, there's a big giant CFL, and I really had no idea what it was, and it was 20 feet up in the air, and I wasn't going to climb up and find it. So I asked them, do you have a utility closet, storage closet? And here you go. Now I got pictures of it. I know the base type, I know the wattage, and so I can, calculate some savings and a replacement if I, switch to LED. Again, here's some examples. So I get a lot of pictures of can lights from a distance, and that doesn't really do me any good. This could be an LED sitting in here. This could be an incandescent bulb sitting in here. This happens to be 2 pin type CFLs or fluorescents. So again, this would be a tough payback to convert to LED or anything like that. We might just leave this section alone. Here's an example of sort of a shot that shows me these are 8-foot T12 2 lamp strips, and then I get a close up. You can't really see it here, but here's the stamp, which I could then tell this is a 110 watt T12 8-footer. Here, this top right picture, this is an example. I was at a parking lot, and they had 70 lights or so, and I found one that was on the ground pointed up at a sign, and so I was able to get a picture of the stamp And so it told me it's 175 watt mercury vapor. So again, try to get that stamp because it's got all the information that we need, or a close-up is the next best thing. Thank you for your time today. Hopefully, this will help you guys in your initial walkthroughs and just help educate you so that we're presenting a good picture for Verde Solutions and can help talk to your customers and really introduce them and get them excited. Once we submit the proper information, then we'll send some engineers out and help your customers save money and get more efficient. Thank you.